It's time for some collective wisdom, a podcast advancing the cannabis revolution, one conversation at a time. We all benefit from sharing knowledge and experiences. So if you want to learn about the business of cannabis from those in the trenches, you've come to the right place. Here's your host, Lisa Tollner, co-founder of SensiChew.
Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Wayne Justman. He is a legendary gay rights and medical marijuana activist who is often referred to as the godfather of weed. His early efforts to provide medical marijuana to HIV and AIDS patients have helped pave the way for adult use privileges that we enjoy today. In the early 1990s, Wayne frequently visited America's first public dispensary, the San Francisco Cannabis Buyers Club, among others, where he met Dennis Perrin, who would become a lifelong friend and fellow activist. They believed in a mission of helping others to ease the pain of HIV and AIDS, and saw the power of marijuana to do just that. Together, Wayne and Dennis were a formidable force for change and led the movement which culminated in the landmark legislation of Prop 215 to legalize cannabis in California. Today, Wayne continues to be involved with cannabis and is an advisor and consultant to dispensaries around California. Wayne Justman, welcome to Collective Wisdom.
It is my pleasure. Thank you ever so much. And also, too, welcome to my home.
Oh,
Thank you both for coming in.
So you've seen a lot of change. I was watching some of the video clips of you back in the early 90s in some of your activist work. And even though there was a lot of pain and suffering going on at the time, I could see smiles on faces. There was also a lot of joy. What was the vibe at the time?
Your uncertainty was remarkable to see that right away. Because in the 80s, San Francisco and other cities and parts of the world were affected by something that we're going through today, a pandemic, and people didn't know what the hell it was about. As world and society moved on, it seemed to now find out that homosexual gay men were possibly the principal spreaders of this deadly virus, HIV, which came to be AIDS. But we couldn't talk about it. We had a president for 8 years didn't want to say anything about it, even though one of his wife's best friends died of AIDS. And we remember Rock. We remember him passing us away. But that still didn't get the attention because it didn't affect us. We're hearing the same thing in the pandemic. It didn't affect us. Or, it was them over there, like a minority. And they weren't thrilled with us as gay men to begin with. But now we've got some kind of a disease that's killing people. Well, hell, they got to isolate us. They've got to do something. One of the things I appreciate about Dennis and myself and so many others during that time, I'm not sure which one we piggybacked on. Did marijuana piggyback up on gay rights? Or did gay rights piggyback on marijuana? But I know they both had a rebirth at that time. Let me say this, too. If it were not for HIV and gay people, we wouldn't have had 215. Now, why do I say that? Well, folks had to go out and gather the signatures.
Right.
Stand out in the street corners. Well, most of our people that came into our dispensary were HIV and AIDS. They realized what each signature was going to mean to them. Hey, I need your signature on this petition because we think that we need access to cannabis to help us who are sick and dying. Can you do that for us? And what a great motivator than for us who were right in the fire. And we realized that, Dennis and myself and others, we're going to do our own lifting. Because if you expect others to do it for you, maybe they're not going to do it for us. They might have good hearts, talk that game,
But they won't get it over the finish line.
We don't have the money. Mm-hmm. We can't afford things like that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just simple. Hey, we've got petitions here. We need you to go out and gather as many signatures as you can. Tell that story. And so if it were not for the gay community and those affected by HIV, I'm not sure where the support would come from that got us started in the early 90s.
Now that we're in this whole new world of adult use and legalization, What do you look at when you look at it now that you wish could have been done a little differently? Hopefully over time, things will improve. Taxes will get lowered. Compassion care will be more complete, those kinds of things. Is there anything in particular that you wish for the most with the new regulations?
Can I jump on that compassion thing
Please
right
do.
away?
Please do.
Oh, I got to do this. Proposition 215 was called the Compassionate Care Act. Mentioned in the act itself, compassion.
Right.
So, Prop 64, put together by people who had only one thing in mind. Hey, let's get control and let's get money. Because as you see how that's written, it's about control and it's money. But no one wrote in or said anything about compassion. And I recall talking with Senator Scott Wiener, our representative here. And Scott, I said, gee, how can this be? How can you forget about giving cannabis away? Well, we never thought about the concept. And then I thought, oh, okay, typical politician. And unfortunately, people in 64 and other things, et cetera, they don't talk to the people who are involved, all right? We've got money people in Silicon Valley that's working with Parker and other people to put 64 together. But are we talking to farmers? Hey, what problems are you having right now? What can we legislatively make it better for you? What about you dispensaries? Can we help you out there too? And what about you patients, you people that need this cannabis? Can we do something about that? But unfortunately, that little guy's never thought about. And as I say, I'm approaching 76, and I see this in today's world. You got Democrats and Republicans, but we don't have anybody that's representing us, that's getting a... Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, number one, the best representative you have is yourself.
Indeed.
And so we had to get Prop 34. Beg. Go to Sacramento. Beg them. And then they make it even more difficult. Oh, you have to count the seed. You got to count this. You have to count that. And then if you're going to give it away, you got to make sure that it's over here, and you got to make it taxes. Okay. I guess childbirth is difficult. I don't know. You forgive me on that.
Yeah,
however, we got to make it
difficult.
Okay, I guess we're going to make it difficult as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the biggest complaints. Prop 215, 251 words. You can possess and you can cultivate cannabis. We didn't say how much. Pound, an ounce, joint. We can cultivate. We didn't say 6 plants, 30,000 like Eddie. We didn't say that. Common sense is no longer common anymore, so we can't rely on common sense and say, okay, well, within a reasonable amount that you can do that. And we kind of kept law enforcement away from things, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's becoming too complicated. And what I see that's unfortunate, it is about the dollar. And what I kind of like, I really do about when we talk about the dollar. Mm-hmm. Years ago after 64 came in, and I got money to invest, and people from Canada and MedMen, a few other things poured it. Oh, Jesus, people. I'm not sure if right now too many things are unsettled. We don't know about this. Our law is going to be changed. What's going to be happening? We don't know. They still pour in a lot of money. Okay. Let me see. MedMen closed down in Los Angeles, and all of them. $38 million or something like that they lost. We had a couple of things here in San Francisco that had to close. My point was being, hey, wait a minute. How the hell can you jump into some real choppy water and think that you're going to survive in this? And unfortunately right now, the cannabis community and the cannabis laws in California and pretty much all over the country are in choppy water. You heard about the MORE Act?
Of course.
I had a good laugh about that a couple months ago. Well, we're working on the MORE Act, and we're going to Washington and things like that, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, okay, well, I've heard that for years. We've got to change federal law. And I'm first guy there. Let's change federal law. But until and unless we get this out of its schedule, all this other shit that we're doing is a joke. Oh, we can grow 6 plants. Don't we feel good about that? Why? Why should we feel good about that? Oh, we can do that. Really? You feel good about that? As long as they have us by the throat. Mm-hmm. Let's change federal law. That's all they got to say. Bye. We have to take that argument away, because then you could do some things that are helpful. And especially out here, we got fires going on. I can smell them a couple of weeks ago. See them in the sky. I didn't hear a lot about our cannabis farmers. I hear it on the grapes. How many years? Year after year after year, we have fires in California. When's the last time you heard the legislature talk about crop insurance for cannabis? Any?
Nope.
Any? Cannabis is one of the leading crops here in the state of California. We don't have insurance for that. So people say we made progress. Again, I don't know what the hell you do as far as measuring progress, because that's silly.
Well, even the insurance, it's gamed. You have to have insurance to be in the legal market. It's required. But yet the coverage is atrocious if they even will allow a claim. When we first opened our manufacturing facility in near Santa Cruz, Watsonville, and 3 months in, we got robbed. They cleared out all the finished goods inventory. Our insurance had just got instituted 2 months earlier, and they came in with a completely lame excuse. After paying our premiums,
was this associated with that robberies during several months ago, the violence and what happened?
No, this was a year ago.
Because again, insurance and what happened with all of these dispensaries,
they got looted.
That I have not heard anybody say that they were successful in any insurance claims, that they got any kind of insurance claims.
No surprise.
That kind of bothers me.
And yet the state wants their
they want
cut.
theirs. Oh yeah, they do.
Their hand is out. They want their cut. The cities want their cut, right. And yet there's no support for really any facet of the industry. Growers, manufacturers. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was so intrigued in looking at some of the video clips and knowing you were the first official American to have a medical marijuana card. And I'm looking at the card right there. And, the concept back in the 90s and pre-compliance was really effective. This is the card. This shows I'm a medical patient. It validates why I need cannabis. And it also, at that time, of course, if you did get pulled over, it was a way you could show law enforcement. So I was really disappointed when compliance came and they were trying to segment between medical and recreational, and that they were expecting them to be kind of equal. But guess what happened? No one went medical. And I thought, well, part of it is because they charge too much for it. At some point, you kind of do the cost-benefit thing, and you think, well, I've got to pay all this money to get the card, but I have to spend this much money to have it really pay off for me. Heck with the card. But yet at the same time, the card has an interesting representation. And in some ways, for people who really need the medicine, I wish they would come up with a way where you could get a card, and that card could represent the fact that you're using it for medical reasons and you deserve to pay less. And you should. I wish this whole compliance thing would incorporate that again. And I don't see why they can't. It wouldn't be that hard.
Let me throw another card in the deck here that we need to play. Where are we going to take that first step to give us some legitimacy? Yeah, I use cannabis. I'm not ashamed of it. And I've never understood why shame and this plant have been so together. In my entire lifetime, I've never understood that.
Well, the propaganda ran for a long time, ran for decades, and it just got in people's subconscious and their consciousness.
Did a hell of a job, didn't he?
Took a long time.
All over the world. And now what I kind of funny, we're expunging peoples from 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Right, their records.
Oh, yeah. Are you guilty about what you decided in the 60s, 70s, 80s? It shouldn't have been done? Because I don't see any other reason why it's being done.
Yeah.
What have they done since that time that they're arrested or whatever it was? Oh, now you're going to just shove it up. So what you're telling me should have never done it in the first place. And we were telling you that then. Isn't it strange, huh? Just sometimes just come around the circle.
Yeah, it's making a big loop.
Really.
What do you think it's going to take for the medical professional? I mean, you're lucky you've got UCSF here, and you've got a lot of smart people over there that have been seeing cannabis as a real benefit for cancer patients and all kinds of medical conditions. But a lot of doctors, again, have been brainwashed. Do you think doctors are starting to slowly come around? Do you think it's just a little too slow? What can we do to help bring them along?
I got the answer a few years ago by attending a conference, and medical people were handling it. One of the female directors that were one of the principal speakers, she had done research in 156 American university hospitals that train doctors. 23 taught anything about the endocannabinoid system. How the hell can we expect doctors to know anything about cannabis if all they're getting is Western medicine? And that's all they're getting.
Right.
And that till and unless we get this into the educational system itself, I don't know what the hell we're doing. We've got, and again, I want to blame us white men. We've really stood in the way. Until and unless we learn about the endocannabinoid system, which each of us have within our nature, we have that. Mm-hmm. But let's not talk about it.
Right.
We've got to start teaching the endocannabinoid system.
Yep, we got to start teaching it. We got to start teaching doctors and making them aware. Everyone thinks that doctors are kind of one step below God, but they don't get everything they need to know in medical school. I mean, they're just now starting to put in topics on nutrition.
I don't know what the medical community will do about that in the next 5 or 10 years. Finding Purdue or anything like that, that's technical. But what are we going to do about this? Oh. It's one thing to have this. What are we going to do about this? And that's the key. We've got to do something and continue to do something.
I agree. One thing that I think we can do, and I think more cannabis companies can do that, and at Sensi we do it, is we invest what we can in research. So we've teamed up with different doctors and research teams at universities around California to study the big three: pain, anxiety, and sleep. Because cannabis is so beautiful for those three things. Sleep has become sort of my personal mission, and we're hoping to launch another campaign with some researchers out of UCLA and UC Irvine who are going to help study sleep, because maybe we can approach it from the research side and get them to do the studies that then will trickle up to the medical community. So tell me, what was the most interesting person you've ever gotten high with?
Really?
Like, I know you mentioned Bob Marley's son Julian, but who was the most fun? Was there anyone that stands out in your mind where that was a good time?
Okay, yeah, all right. I have a few, but let me narrow one down, because we'll talk about my dear friend Terrence Hallinan.
Okay.
Terrence was having re-election, and a restaurant on down here on Financial, an Italian restaurant, and in the back was this open air kind of alley. Huge, beautiful. He had this reception down there. So Woody Harrelson was the guest speaker. He comes in, and of course, everybody's so excited. Cheers was going on at that time, and so Woody's at his glory. And of course, before the official thing started, myself and a few other people invited Woody out to the back and to medicate. Oh, there was no problem with that at all. Okay. He was in good for that, but I knew he was. But it was just a great setting. So we probably took about a half hour during these things, and we were all pretty well medicated. And so it's time for the meet and greet, et cetera, et cetera. So now the introductions are coming along, and they get up to Woody, and it's now his time to speak. And so Woody's about like where you are to me, and he begins to how nice it is to be here, and then he kind of drifts a little bit. And as he stumbles along, he's getting a little bit, not aggravated, but funny. It's your fault. You guys did this to me. Everybody roars because they knew he was high. They saw him get high. But he's pointing at me and Terrence.
It's your fault.
It's our fault that we got him wasted. Great party. Now, let's get back into the Chronicle. The next day, Terrence had an interesting press relationship when he was a district attorney. And, of course, they talked about this party. And as usual, the odor of marijuana filtered throughout the room during the night. I mean, it was a thing. I loved it. Terrence loved it. Sometimes with people, you got to put it in their face a little bit. What John Lewis said, the good trouble. Good trouble. That was good trouble.
Yeah.
Bill Maher, he was a good guy as well, and some other folks. But I think Woody Harrelson probably was the one. And Julian Marley, just a great guy. Just a great guy.
Have you ever gotten high with someone who really surprised you, like you didn't think they'd want to get high with you, but they did?
I had a fella that could guarantee a pretty good suit. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
George Zimmer. Men's Warehouse.
Oh, my God.
I guarantee you. And Terrence Hallinan and I go to a fundraiser up in Tiburon, some doctor's house. He'd heard a little bit about me, and we talked. And what a delightful man. I mean, somebody that I didn't expect to ever smoke or meet. But, again, he was on the normal advisory board, so a history and all of these things. But he guaranteed us some pretty good smoke. I guarantee it.
I guarantee it. I love it. Well, I could sit here and talk to you all day. If you could look into your crystal ball, what would you like to see as one If you could pick one thing you could change about cannabis today, what would you change?
I would like to make all the laws, regulations, et cetera, as simple as possible.
So reduce the complication.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Why should we have to fill out form after form after form to say we use cannabis or I want to grow cannabis on my farm? Why do I have to fill out these things and then allow everybody else from the state to come in and regulate it? No. We don't need all of that. Gee, what was that KISS principle thing at one time?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get too far than the KISS principle, because if you can't keep it simple, stupid, you've already passed me. You really have. You've already passed me, because I think that's one of the things. We've got to simplify the tax codes. We have to simplify all of these things. Until and unless we're doing that, the little guy's going to continue to suffer. I forget about this industry itself. What are we doing in the general public, because of what this pandemic is doing to us? And not only what is it doing to us now, where do you think you're going to be in the summer of 2021? These masks, I think, are going to be around for a while. Again, I hope that we make some adjustments, that we get some normalcy or some basic understanding about business and industry. As a former school teacher, I can't imagine kids not being in class. I just can't imagine that. But crystal ball, just simplify everything. Life is hard enough. It truly is hard enough. We don't have to make it complicated by over-regulations, rules, and laws, because all it does is just choke the energy out of the spirit of the human being. We don't need to do that.
Amen. Wayne, thank you so much for your time today. You've inspired me. You inspired me with your courage, your kindness. And I think I can speak for everyone in saying thank you for the work you've done to help and continue to help end prohibition. Because even though it's legal, it still has this gray cloud over it for so many people. And the work you've done has been just tremendous, and I'm very grateful.
Now, understand, I'm a very selfish man, however, because all that work that I've done, there is one motivational factor. I'm HIV positive. That got me motivated. Trust me on that.
But
really.
We all have someone in our life that's sick in some way. We owe it to ourselves to learn about this plant. It holds a lot of power that we've only scratched the surface of, and it can bring relief to so many people. So we owe it to them to help them. 20
years ago, when I opened a dispensary, we didn't have products as I'm holding right now. We did not have these things. So can you imagine what you and other folks are going to do in the next 5, 10, and 15 years? And especially once it gets out to the consumer, that, hey, let me try this. And they find out that it works or it gives them some kind of a relief or some pleasure of enjoyment. That's what's important. And that's what's so remarkable, which I'm happy about. The consumer of cannabis can go into these dispensaries now or even online and get these products. That's so vitally important. And that's where I'm happy to step aside. My work will continue, but it's an advisory role. But my step aside for young folks that are moving forward, that want to continue to carry on their image, not my image of the plant, not my image of what it can do, but their image, what they want to do, and what their plan is for themselves.
Yeah. Well, you've gave us a good kickstart, Wayne. So we've been speaking with Wayne Justman, legendary lifelong activist and the godfather of weed. This is your host, Lisa Tollner. Thank you for listening to Collective Wisdom, and until next time, be well.
That's this week's episode of the Collective Wisdom Podcast. Join us each week for another episode on OC Talk Radio, streaming on Thursdays at 3 p.m., and you can download Collective Wisdom wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to visit cacollectivewisdom.com or email us at collectivewisdompodcast@gmail.com to join the conversation. Thank you for listening.